So I think you're going to find this last session to be very interesting. I start off with looking at support turning into resistance in a chart pattern and vice versa. And then, as I mentioned, I was a guest of one of the largest Canadian brokers for some of these sessions. And in this particular session, we asked the audience to toss out some symbols that I would then do some technical analysis on. So they were symbols that were presented at random, and you'll get to see my comments and thoughts on those as they came through. And this should wrap up this series of sessions on technical analysis. So please give me some comments. Let me know how you liked it. Take care. The final thing I want to share with you on patterns is when you have what's called an inversion. So what used to be resistance, you get a massive breakout, then that resistance becomes support. When something falls back down to there, the people that missed it here are saying, I want to be in Guywire, but I'm not going to pay a premium price. I don't know where this is at today, but let's take a look as well. Yeah, so Guywire rallied up to here, came down to here, rallied back up to that top. Now it's selling back off again. So it could be one of those that's going to be in a range for a while too. I don't know. But the point being that what had been resistance turned into support. Some people call it filling the gap. You often hear that gaps get closed. This was a gap, and then that gap closed. This is another example of that same principle. We had been resistance, finally broke out. Then when we came back and fell through, that became resistance again. But in the middle here, it was support. We came back to it, support for a little while, then it collapsed. So those are the types of patterns that as traders, I want to see. My goal on this slide was to have somebody out there give me a symbol and I can take a look, but I know we're running short on time. So I'm going to leave that up to you, Jeff. I apologize obviously I get excited.
No, this is great. I'm really happy about it. And we have literally hundreds of questions coming in. People are just eating it up. I think we won't cover everything today just by nature of time, but there are more that we'll have more sessions. And so folks can keep an eye out for that. I think this would be great though if we could take a couple looks, take a look at tickers. A couple that have come in are Tesla, STZ, Micron, any of those. So AMD, any of those that seem good too.
And keep in mind, not every stock is going to have a pattern associated with it, okay? But I would look at Tesla here. We can see that it was very clearly, so this is resistance here, but it broke. Nice rally. And then here, so just look at where can I put the most points together. So we've got a point here, got a point here, got a point here. So if I were to draw a line on this chart to attempt to design some sort of trade around it, my line is going to look something like that, generally in that area. So here, what I'd be looking for is if Tesla pulls back into this area, I'm going to design a position that's going to be bullish in nature, expecting it to bounce off. That would be my take there on Tesla. What was another one maybe that you had?
AMD.
I haven't looked at that at all. I used to trade AMD quite a bit. So I would say on AMD, this is probably one where I'm not seeing anything that stands out incredibly as a point. I guess I would say if I were to pick something, I would be probably setting an alert in my system to maybe look at AMD if it came down into this general area based off the fact that we touched here once. We broke through it here, but again, and then we chopped around it here a little bit. We got a little bobble here that pulled back and took off. So I would maybe be looking at AMD there, but the problem with this trade, if I were to look to buy AMD when it came back down to here, I don't have what I consider a good place to define a stop. There's nothing that tells me, gee, I would expect traders to come in at a certain point, and if they don't, I'm wrong. So there's nothing here that if it breaks through this, if it came back here and I went long, and if it would break lower, I don't really have a good point to say, if it gets below this, I'm done. So that would be something I would look at, again, with every trade. I want to have a plan.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And see, we're coming up on time here. Are you okay to do?
I'm okay. Yeah, I'm okay.
Sure. And folks, if you have to drop it, we understand we'll send out the recording later on. Maybe we'll just pay through a couple more of these and then maybe one or two sort of broader questions if that's
Sure.
okay that have come up.
Yeah, and then I just got a few things to kind of wrap everything up at the end.
Okay, perfect. So let's do two more of these and then we'll keep going. Could you take a look at LTRs? A few folks have mentioned that one.
So I like the look of this. Obviously very strong. I would probably look to draw a channel onto this at this point. So I would probably do something. There's actually a channel drawing tool. I'm not using it here, and I'm not, again, I don't normally come in and draw all these, so I'm a little rusty at that part of this. But basically, I'm looking at a channel, as you can see, that that kind of is like this. And then I can make a parallel to that one and see what the bottom half of that thing looks like. So it is forming a bit of what I would call a wedge pattern to the upside. My expectation on this is going to be, I think, a cup and handle. So this is going to form a cup. Then it's probably going to come back up to here, probably chop sideways a little bit. And I would be looking to potentially get long this if it were to pull back near this line, or if it broke out above this old high right here. If it broke out above that 185, that would tell me that it was breaking out of that cup and handle pattern. And we can also just look real quickly here at volumes telling us a bit of a story too. We're seeing here that on those up days, volume's been a little higher. There's a couple down days where volume is up, but it wasn't really a down day. If we look at this, I'm going to zoom in on this because this is important. If we look at this particular star here, right here, this red, that is what's called a hammer pattern. And the hammer pattern means that it opened, it ran quite a bit lower during the day there, but then buyers came in and drove that price all the way back almost to the top. So that's telling me there was strength there, okay? There was buyers coming in on that day, which is a good sign, obviously, if I'm looking to be long Palantir.
Great. Okay, and then let's do one more if you don't mind. I was just curious with like recent IPOs, for instance. So a couple of people have talked about Figma, FIG, which I think is maybe a more recent listing. And so do these kind of things apply here, or is there not enough history?
Yeah, great question. Great question. So from my perspective, okay, and you might find people that have different opinions on this, but from my perspective, if it's not something that's heavily institutionally traded, I'm seeing the footprints of a bunch of other hacks like me out there. I'm not seeing the footprints of big money. And I want to see big money is what's going to create turning points. Okay. So what I'm talking about here isn't going to apply to what the heck was the meme stock a year or two ago? Was it AMC or I don't know. Well, one of those that just went absolutely crazy ridiculous. All right. So when you have a bunch of retail traders driving the bus, so to speak, I don't put as much credibility into what's happening there. So for me, I wouldn't personally use a chart pattern on an IPO. That doesn't mean I wouldn't be in an IPO. I would just use fundamental analysis to look at the underlying value of that company and decide if I wanted to own it or not. To be of interest and helpful, and if so, please give me a thumbs up, a like, a subscribe, or any comments below. Thanks so much, everyone.